So we determined the cost of attendance, how much it will cost you to get to college. We've looked at how do I apply for aid? How do I prove my need, right? That my family does need help paying for college, and we're going to do that with the FAFSA, right? To file that application, your college will take a look at the information that comes out of that, and they will craft together called a financial aid package. Here is all the different types of aid that we can give you to help you pay for college. So we want to look at today at what are the different types of aid that are out there. There's lots of aid out there. It's just that they're all a little different. Their properties and their requirements are going to be a little different depending on the type of aid. So we want to generally take a look at the types of aid, and that way when you see it on your financial aid letter, you'll understand what you're reading. Okay, so your major types of help that are available, we're going to talk about grants, scholarships, loans, work study, and tax credits. These are the 5 tools you have to be able to help you pay for college. All right, so we're going to take a look at each one of these. Now, as we do that, I'd like you to just take particular note of is the different type of aid, is it presented as a need-based award, or is it not need-based? Okay, so we want to look at, are they need-based or not? Okay. Secondly, does this type of aid have to be repaid or not? Right? Is it a gift, or is it money you'd have to pay back over time? Okay. And third, are there any requirements of you for taking this aid? All right. So these are the 3 things we want to focus on: is it gift or not? Do you have to pay it back or not? Are these things given for need or not? And then what are the other requirements? What specialized things do I have to keep in mind if I'm going to take this aid? Okay, so let's take a look first at grants. Okay, grants. The grants are absolutely gift aid. You do not need to pay back grants. Okay, grants usually are given for the highest financial need. We start with giving out grants to people who have the highest financial needs, so the lowest family contribution numbers. Okay, I don't have time this time around to talk very specifically about some of the popular grants you're going to see, but these are just some examples you might see. The federal Pell Grants is a grant program by the federal government. The FSEOG grants, the Federal Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grants. These grants, I know for certain, are given at the highest need numbers. Right? So if you see an FSEOG grant on your financial aid letter, you've qualified for exceptional need. Okay, New York State. If you go to college inside New York State, there is an aid program by the state called the TAP Awards, the Tuition Assistance Program. So you'll see your TAP award or your TAP grant will show up on your financial aid letter. Okay, grants. They are gift need. Gift aid. You do not have to pay them back. And grants, first and foremost, are usually given to students demonstrating the highest financial need. Okay. And some of these awards can range upwards of $5,000 or $6,000 a year, right, depending on what you qualify for. So, again, take a look at your own financial aid letter and do a little bit of research on the grants you might see on your letter. Right. Next are scholarships. Okay, scholarships are gift aid. You do not have to pay back your scholarships. They are usually given for some sort of a special criteria. Most of us are familiar with that with academics because of high grades, exceptional test scores, what have you. Athletic scholarships, hey, that they want me to come and play basketball or play football or whatever, and we're going to pay you to come here. We're going to pay for your tuition so you play with us. Special talents, criteria, essay contests, extracurricular involvements that you've been involved in, special programs that you become a part of, and if you're going to be part of this program, it comes with a scholarship, right? So these are not necessarily need-based, but they are given for other reasons, and usually they're given for some sort of a special skill, talent, achievement that you've demonstrated, and would like to reward you for that with some money. Scholarships do not have to be repaid. Good thing there. One of the things, if you have accepted a scholarship, and I'm sure that they told you this up front when you in your financial aid letter, you have to take a look. For a lot of scholarships, there are some strings attached, right? There are some requirements you're going to have to maintain in order to keep your scholarship. Sometimes it's just a matter of having a GPA, right? So you need to keep your average of, have a 3.0 GPA, or maybe in our world, you need to have at least an 80 average in order to maintain your scholarship. Athletics, you must be a member of the team in good standing. You must play for us in order to keep your scholarship. If you get dismissed from the team, if you get hurt, if you, for some reason, can no longer, play lacrosse for us, well, we're going to take back the money. Right? Maybe it's being a member of a club or an organization, participation in events. I'm aware of a program that my sister-in-law works with, where they have to be a part of a special program for the entire year, and they have to maintain service hours and meetings and what have you, right? If at any point you no longer meet these requirements, typically your scholarship goes away, and now you are stuck with the difference. For some folks, if you lose your scholarship, that could mean you can't afford to go to that school anymore. So for a lot of people who are there on scholarship, this is motivation to keep your grades up, stay in shape, make the team, participate in events. And if you do all those things, we'll reward you with money. So scholarships, gift aid, not usually given on need, but are usually given for talents and special criteria, but don't have to be repaid. There are tons of scholarships out there for college students. Not only through your own college, but even online. You can search for tons of scholarships that are just out there, and some of them are given for essays you write or participation in extracurriculars outside of school. Who knows? Check with some of the maybe groups and organizations that you belong to outside of school. Do they offer scholarship information, scholarship programs? I was involved when I was a kid, and are still involved as an adult now in the Boy Scouts of America. And in scouting, there are lots and lots of, scholarship programs that are available just for scouts. I had gotten a scholarship for working at our summer camps. And they had money that was given out, and I got like a $2,500 scholarship one summer when I was working. I'm an Eagle Scout, so there are award programs out there for Eagle Scouts, right? So take a look. I've seen family members of other kids who maybe are involved in the Knights of Columbus or the Elks or some other organization like that. Do they have scholarship programs? Sometimes it's an application. It's simply an application, maybe an application and an essay. And if you can fill those out, hey, $500 is $500. That could buy your books for a semester. Right. I'll tell you that the $2,500 scholarship that I got, a lot of that went to buy my computer that I used in college and a number of years after that. So every dollar helps. And if you're willing to put some work in, write some essays, fill out some applications, you can make some decent money that way to help offset the cost of tuition and all the other expenses you have. There's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of scholarship scams because they know people will need the money. They want the money. They're eager for money. So you just got to be aware. I'm just going to put this up here. Any scholarship that claims to be very exclusive, any scholarship that asks you to put up money in order to secure your scholarship, if they contact you saying that you're now a finalist in a scholarship program that you've never applied for and never heard of, these are all things that could raise a red flag to say, nah, this is not good. And it's probably most likely they're phishing scams. If you think back to our credit card theft and identity fraud, a lot of these are phishing scams. So you probably are going to have to apply for these scholarships first. No one's going to out of the blue email you to say, hey, we want to give you money. And never, ever, ever put up money for a scholarship. Right? No one's ever going to ask you to do that for a legitimate scholarship. So just be aware of that. Okay. Grants, scholarships. And our third option here is work study. Okay. Work study. You are going to have to get a job on campus. Right? So the federal government and the state government gives your college money to be able to pay student workers. Right, so you are going to be able to get a job on campus to be able to earn some money to be able to help pay your college tuition bill. Most work-study folks worked 8 to 10 hours a week, and this would be in addition to your studies. So if you're going to be a full-time student, and you would have this job on campus for 8 to 10 hours a week. Right, that could be a couple hours a day, or longer hours, 3 or 4 days a week. Usually, work-study is awarded to students showing the most financial need. So they kind of start with need-based and then work your way down the lower your expected family contribution is, or the higher your contribution is. Work-study is taxable income, right? That should be applied to the cost of attendance. This is not going to show up on your tuition bill as part of a payment, right? When your loans and scholarships come in, they basically show up already on your bill as a payment. So you owe us $30,000 this semester. Well, I have a $20,000 scholarship and a $5,000 grant, right? Those things already show up. Work-study won't. It's basically a job, folks. And they are going to hand you money in a check as if you were working at Starbucks, and you're expected to turn that around and apply that to your tuition bill or your related expenses for college, right? So, and then all the money you earn from work-study does not have to be repaid. All right. Not everyone will be eligible for work-study. Okay, I know that I wasn't when I was in college. They didn't offer that to me as an option. Just because you have work-study on your financial aid package does not mean they already have a job lined up for you. You kind of have to pursue that when you get to campus or when you first learn about work-study in your financial aid package. So you'll have to go find a job that qualifies for work-study. They don't necessarily issue, hey, you're going to get $1,500 worth of work-study and you're going to be working in the bookstore, right? So you have to go kind of pursue that. Right, lots and lots and lots of offices around campus have work-study jobs. I had friends who worked in the registrar's office, in the bursar's office, for campus security, in the library, in the bookstore, you name it. So you want to investigate work-study eligible jobs at your campus. Right. Grants, scholarships, work-study. The next one is tax credits. Tax credits allow your family to deduct part of your college costs from your taxes. Right? There are some aspects of your college education that can actually bring down the amount of tax that you have to pay to the federal government. None of these will be listed on your financial aid package. You kind of have to go and kind of find these things out on your own. But check with your accountant. Check with whoever helps you with your taxes. If you go to irs.gov and you can search for tax deductions or tax credits and look for things that talk about education credits. Okay, the studentaid.ed.gov website also has some really great information about tax credits. You kind of have to learn about these and figure out how and if and how you qualify for those tax credits, and then make sure that you mention them. Either if your parents do their own taxes, they have to kind of account for that, or if you have an accountant or a tax preparer who helps you with your taxes, to point out, yes, I'm going to college, and they may be able to help you. If you have a really good accountant, if you and your parents just tell him or her, I'm going to college, or I have a son or daughter in college, they may start asking you questions to determine what types of tax credits you already qualify for. Okay, so these won't show up in your financial aid package. They're not need-based. They're not lost my train of thought. They're not going to show up in your. They don't have to be repaid, but you do have to work for them. You have to know about them, and you have to apply for them in your tax filings. Okay, so tax credits could be a way to make up some money on college. All right, so we've talked about grants, scholarships, work-study, tax credits. That's 4 of the 5. Here's the 5th one, and the 5th one is loans. Okay, loans are not gift aid. They are the only one we've talked about so far that is not gift aid. Loans must be paid back. All right. For most people, this is the last resort to how most families make up the difference between the cost of attendance and the balance they have on their tuition. All right. So if I were to illustrate this, let's assume that the total cost of attendance to go to your school is $30,000, right? Your expected family contribution of $5,000. Maybe you got other financial aid, grants, scholarships, work study, whatever, totaling $15,000. Okay. So there's $10,000 left that has to be paid. 20,000 of it has been covered, and here's the $10,000 balance. So here is where some people will either, you have two choices right now. You have two choices. You can either pay this out of pocket and not borrow money, or I don't have $10,000. I'm going to have to borrow it and pay it back at some point. All right. It is possible to attend college without taking out loans. It's possible. You will need the money in an account, in a savings account. Maybe you've invested and you have money stowed away for college. Great. And you can pay it in cash and not have to go into debt. But if you don't, you're going to have to come up with this $10,000 somehow. And a lot of people will float the rest of this in loans. Okay. Loans are available for both undergraduate and graduate degrees. So you're talking about your bachelor's degree, which is most of your 4-year degrees that you will be pursuing in the fall. And then after you earn a bachelor's degree, you can go back for a specialized degree, your master's degree. That's called graduate school. And loans are available for graduate school. Okay. There are some loan programs that are need-based and some that are not. In some cases, you don't necessarily have to prove need. You just have to qualify for the loan, and a lot of that's going to deal with your credit score and your credit history and all that stuff we just talked about in the credit unit. All right. So not all loans have need. Unfortunately, I can't discuss here every single loan that you're going to run into. I'm going to talk about just a couple of general categories of loans and how they're going to kind of work for you and things you should know about them. All right. So here are some of the major types of loans. Really, there's a loan program from the federal government called the direct loans, and the federal government has, and this is what I really want to focus on, there are two very specific types of loans that come from the federal government. One is a subsidized loan, and the other one is an unsubsidized loan. Okay, we want to talk really quickly about PLUS loans and then private loans. Okay. The federal government has a loan program called the Ford Direct Loan Program. Right, often just called your direct loans. You are borrowing money from the federal government in this case in order to go to college. Interest rates could change; they change year to year. But I really want to focus here on there are two types of loans: subsidized and unsubsidized loans. Subsidized loans. What's going to happen is as you're at school. So let's say you borrow this money your first semester of your freshman year of college, right? So you've borrowed, I'll use that $10,000. You borrowed $10,000 to be able to pay for college. You now owe that $10,000. And as we know, when you use someone else's money, you have to pay for it. Interest is going to now start accumulating on those loans. Well, as long as you're in school, a subsidized loan, the U.S. Department of Education pays the interest on your loan while you're at school. Okay? So, subsidized loans, the government pays the interest on your loan while you're in school. You don't start paying interest on the loan until you graduate and start paying the loans back. Then your interest kicks in. So you really kind of get a 4-year buffer on interest, assuming you graduate in 4 years. If it takes you longer to graduate, they will pay as long as you're a student. And while you're there, at least a half-time student. So for a lot, it's like 9 credits. It's usually a half-time student. You can't borrow more than your financial need. You can't get more free money from the government. I'm not going to borrow $10,000 for college and then another $15,000 so I can redo my kitchen. It doesn't work that way. In 2019-2020, the interest rates on subsidized loans were about 5%, which is pretty decent. Okay, so subsidized loans, the U.S. government pays the interest while you're in school. Unsubsidized loans, back up. Subsidized loans, that benefit of having the government pay your interest is usually given first to the people who demonstrate the most financial need. So this is actually a need-based loan program. All right. The unsubsidized loans are not need-based, right? That's for most of the rest of us. If you don't qualify for need, interest does start accruing when you take out the loan, right? So even though you don't have to pay the loan back until you graduate, interest is going to slowly build on that loan for the 4 years. So subsidized and unsubsidized really takes care of who is taking care of the interest on your loan while you're still a student. And they have the same interest rate as the other loans, the subsidized loans, about 5% right now for undergraduates and about 6.5%, 6.6% for graduate loans. Right? So if you see on your financial aid statement, blah, 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 subsidized loan, blah, 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 unsubsidized loan, you know, one has the interest paid while you're a student, one does not. Plus loans, you are probably not going to see on your financial aid package, though you might. Plus loans are for your parents. Right? Your parents can take out a loan on behalf of their children. If you are still what we call a dependent, you still rely on your family. You haven't become independent, where you live completely on your own and your parents have no more responsibility for you. They can take out loans on your behalf. You need to at least be a half-time student. Your parents will have to have a positive credit history. So I don't have specific numbers, but a favorable credit score and a good credit report. Right? The maximum amount that they can take out is based on the cost of attendance and whatever other aid is available to you. And in 2019, 2020, it was 7.6% interest on those loans. Your payments, your family does have to start paying those loans as soon as the loan is received by the college. So your parents do not have any sort of a grace period or they have to pay the loans very quickly, or they have to start paying their loans immediately. This idea of when your college receives the money from your loan is when the term for that is disbursement. The loan has been dispersed, meaning the funds that you are eligible, you're borrowing, were sent to the college and have been applied to your account. Okay, so student loans, you do have the privilege of paying those back when you graduate. You don't have to pay them back while you're in school because you have no job, right? Your parents, though, will have to start paying those loans immediately. If you're not going to borrow money from the federal government, you're welcome to borrow money from a bank. Right? Any bank or other financial institution, you can get other loans. Sometimes your college financial aid office has banks that they work with where they will direct you to borrow the money from there, or you can seek out your own college loans from whatever bank you happen to bank at. Right? So take a look there. Usually, federal loans, you repay them after you graduate or leave school, and then you'll have to start paying them. In private loans, often you'll have to start paying immediately. Federal loans come with a fixed interest rate. Sometimes private loans can be variable. The federal loans, they have the ability to subsidize your interest, but there is no such thing on the private loans. The bank is not going to pay your interest while you're in school. For federal loans, there isn't really a credit check required. Those are, a lot of them are need-based, but it's very, very likely that you will need a credit check and a credit history for a private loan. Federal loans, you don't often need a cosigner, but on private loans, you very well might. Right? Especially if you're taking out the private loans and have no credit history, you're probably going to need a cosigner. This is interesting. The interest, if you pay on federal loans for college, the interest could be tax deductible. Another reason not to put your tuition bill on your credit card, because your credit card interest is not tax deductible, but your federal loan interest could be tax deductible. And the interest on a private loan is not. All right, so just some comparisons between federal loans and private loans. If you can't make it all the difference up between all the aid you've gotten and your federal loans, it's possible you may have to take out some private loans if you can afford and are interested in doing that. So this is kind of a very quick recap of the types of loans. You have subsidized loans and unsubsidized loans, plus loans, and individual private loans. Subsidized loans, they're need-based and they pay the interest while you're in college. Unsubsidized loans are not need-based. They do not pay the interest while you're in college. Plus loans are for your parents. All right. So if we were to look at all of the pieces of your financial aid package, these are the types of aid that are available. grants, scholarships, loans, work study, and tax credits, right? The big thing to remember about all of this is what has to be repaid? Grants, scholarships, work study, tax credits do not have to be repaid. Loans do. Secondly, are they need-based or non-need-based? Typically, grants and work study and some of the loans you might apply for are based on need. Scholarships not necessarily on need, but those are based on talents and other special skills you might have. Tax credits are available to everyone, right? And then do I have to pay them back? Any of the other strings that might be attached. A lot of the strings attached have to do with scholarships. You have to do something in order to keep that scholarship. And then even things like work study and finding employment and stuff like that. So if we had to look at the different tools in your financial aid tool belt, here are the 5 things going to help you pay for college.